And then looking to the future even more, what can we expect in terms of cross-coupling technologies and the impact they will have on their relevant markets? Philip, over to you.
Yeah, it would be maybe a little bit hubristic that I can really estimate, let's say, all the next steps which might happen there. However, I would say what I assume what will happen is that, let's say, a step-by-step implementation of new further technologies might happen. So of course, like with already presented new technologies from Viktoria, that's a new thinking, a new concept, how catalysis can be. That's very interesting. That might be, let's say, another opportunity to think reactions. And I think that would be a good starting point to implement, because that's maybe one disadvantage of industry, while academia is relatively quick in thinking things, develop things. Industry needs some time to implement, to see, is that a stable concept? Is that a good catalyst, for example? Can we implement that? And that will be a step-by-step thing. And going back to, let's say, one of the initial questions, what happens in the last decade? I would say in the next decade, a step-by-step implementation of these new catalytic technologies will happen in cross-coupling catalysis, because the cross-coupling catalysis will remain important, because you can achieve so many different important molecules. And that's maybe also a thing we had maybe missed in the very beginning. It's really the opportunity to make parallel reactions and not consecutive reactions. And this advantage is, of course, very important if you really have a limited time frame for development and for process chemists. And if you want to, if you think of, let's say, small variations of some substituents in an aryl or in a side group, maybe, then you can relatively easily modular with some building blocks change some properties of a molecule. And so I'm really convinced that cross-coupling catalysis will remain, of course, an important technology in principle, where we definitely need to review which tools in the toolbox, which concepts should be added, and also have a look and that's also, of course, a cost driver then in the end, where our turnover numbers very well, turnover frequency, as already mentioned by Nilay, but also from Viktoria, is very important. If you have some side reactions, anytime you give the catalyst or you give the substrate to do something else, then really reacting to the desired products will really cause some undesired products in the end. And these are things which are important. And also maybe look to things like non-precious metals, which are also begin to, if you go back to homocouplings and the Ullmann type reactions, which are there for more than decades, 100 years or more, and to review how, let's say, that is maybe applicable also in pharma would be interesting.
Nilay?
Yeah, so I'd like to sort of break up my answer to this question into two parts. So first, we can consider the traditional cross-coupling reactions, which to me kind of involves sp2 bond formation, right? Carbon-carbon bond formation, what the Nobel Prize was awarded for. And I think here the real innovation is going to happen in two areas. So one is we're going to start cross-coupling non-traditional substrates, which we're already doing, but we're going to make this more practical. So these are substrates like esters, amides, phenols. There are things which are really quite complementary to the aryl chlorides that we can do at the moment, but perhaps in certain synthetic applications, it's going to be much more advantageous to be able to couple these functional groups as opposed to being able to function the typical pseudohalides. The other area where traditional cross-coupling is, I think, going to really become more prevalent is in new applications. So things like modifying proteins, right? We've seen from the work of Brad Pentalute and Steve Buchwald that if you can use cross-coupling to put a fluorescent tag selectively on a protein, this could be really valuable moving forward. Then the other half that I'd like to consider here is cross-coupling has really led to the development, in my opinion, of a number of really important, powerful new reactions. So these are things like cross-electrophile coupling and metallophotoredox chemistry. These use a lot of the fundamental concepts of cross-coupling, and they are really at their infancy in terms of practical development. So pharma might be using them to do discovery chemistry. I don't think they're really using them on process scale. And as the mechanistic picture relating to these reactions becomes more sophisticated, we're going to start developing new ligands, new catalysts for these processes, and this technology will really mature, and it will complement cross-coupling because it's much more powerful for sp3, sp2 bond formation, or even sp3, sp3 bond formation. And I view all of these discoveries as kind of building on our fundamental knowledge of cross-coupling.
And then Viktoria?
Yeah, so I mean, I fully agree with what was already said. So I guess that in the future, many issues that we have at the moment will be solved, be it by the design of new ligands or new catalysts, and also, I guess, broaden the scope in terms of reactions where coupling chemistry comes into play. Since more and more ligands and catalysts will be developed in the future, of course, there is a much broader toolbox that synthetic chemists can use in order to solve the issues in coupling chemistry. And we don't know what these issues really might be in the future, but I'm pretty sure that we will be creative enough to solve these issues in the future. But one point which I would like to address is that since we have so many catalysts available, of course, it will become more and more difficult to really find the best catalyst for a reaction. And maybe one thing that we haven't mentioned so far, but what I am sure will also play a role in coupling chemistry in the future is that probably since we have the mechanistic understanding, I'm pretty sure that also machine learning will help in the future to find the ideal catalyst much more quickly than we know it today, just based on our the knowledge of structure-activity relationships. And this will also help in coupling chemistry to accelerate finding the ideal reaction conditions, ideal catalyst for a specific problem which might come up in the future.